and welcome to NUFC Talk TV. This is obviously myself and the Geordie Yam Yam and the Mighty Win coming to you live this Monday lunchtime. Wherever you are, you're welcome. And like I say, if you don't mind, we've got not a lot of stories to go by, but we're going to talk of a couple of interesting comments that have been brought up, and obviously carry on from the weekend. I would say football show because it wasn't anything really big to talk about, but there has been one or two interesting things out there. So let's before we crack on with the show,
Typical blue Monday morning when we've had a bad result.
It's been a bad week, mate. It's been a bad week, hasn't it? Because we had Monday with a West Ham game, which was dire, and then obviously against Crystal Palace, which wasn't much better. And by all accounts, we were very close to winning I suppose, a trophy that we didn't want. Anyway, let's do some housework before we crack on with a little bit of news that's out there. Welcome to all watching across all of the platforms. Thanks to all the mods working in the background. They do a cracking job and don't always get the appreciation that they deserve. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoy the show. It just helps us get further as a channel to other NUFC supporters. Subscribe, it's totally free. Don't forget to hit that bell for any future content. We do 7 days a week, sometimes 2 shows a day, sometimes recorded mainly live. So if we make a boop, then you'll see it. The first one's there. So if you hit that bell, you'll be notified for every live event that comes your way or any pre-recorded show. If you want to help us, you can become a member. That's a small monthly fee that'll give you a chance of winning a prize at the end of a month. And I think we've got one coming up either tonight or tomorrow. We'll be giving one away. So if you haven't yet done so, get memberships going. No problems. Obviously, that gives you behind-the-scenes content as well, all the members-only stuff that we do, as well as our usual daily stuff. Don't forget to check out our webpage, nufctalk.tv, for all the news and content that's on there. And like I say, it's totally ad-free, done for the love of the club. If you've got a question for the panel, then try and put a Q in front of the question, and we'll do our best to talk about it. But again, if you want to guarantee it being mentioned, then use the super chats. Use the $, follow the instructions. That'll be highlighted on our screen, and we will thank you as we go on and read your message out. And all new members and anybody out there that likes to gift a membership out, that'll be highlighted and thanked as we go on through the show. So, without further ado, I suppose, young man, let's obviously see the day in. As you can see, I've got me plugins today, so I've got no big ears. And he said, the first thing he said to me, he said, "Oh, happy new haircut." I know I haven't had a haircut, but obviously that's how bad my hair looks when I've got my earphones on. So it's nice to know that I look streamlined today. First little bit of news, I suppose we can go into.
The Concord version of the Geordie Yam Yam.
Yeah, exactly. Would you like a profile? It's not that bad, actually. There was obviously a little bit of talk in the background about obviously what we could or couldn't do the weekend and the week before that, the Monday evening, and it was just there was a lot of wrangling. Eddie Out Brigade was there, and what I noticed was, and there's a couple of interesting ones, because obviously social media, when things are starting to go pretty mire, it starts to get going, and I've seen there's a lot of social media guys now, YouTubers as well, out there all vying for a change, and it's different, isn't it? Because the way I look at it, I mean, I know you're very much Eddie in, but you're moving slightly towards questioning Eddie's ability, very much like myself. I don't see how things could have dramatically changed over a period of time. And, it's like I said, sometimes teams go through this. We've seen lots of teams. I mean, we look at Man City, we look at Aston Villa. and that's an interesting one because the team that I see around us at this present moment in time, and under a manager that everybody wanted at the club, Unai Emery. Now, isn't it funny, right? Because this is the way I look at the way these things go, topsy-turvy type rides. Unai Emery with Aston Villa hasn't won a game since October the 22nd. And yet you don't hear anything, even from their fans. I watch their social media stuff. And they also drew at home to Palace, 2-2. But they haven't won a game since October the 22nd, and yet nobody's shouting for his head. So why do you think, after our topsy-turvy start to the season, which hasn't been great, we're still only 6 points off second place, in this really strange season, and that's the only way I can describe it as a really strange season, because a couple of wins either way, and you're either at the top of the group or you're underneath the group. Now, I always look at Christmas as being my, you can put it in three groups if you like. The first 13 games, the second 13s, and the final 12 games. But obviously Christmas has always been, one of those draw line in the sand. You're either in a relegation battle or you're in a Champion League battle, if you like. This season seems to be a little bit different.
Or you're marooned in the middle, which quite often you quite often get a group that goes away and a group that falls away, and then you've got a group in the middle.
Yeah. Geordie Dan's put a great answer, a reply to my question, actually, because he's just come straight in with, I think it's because we have no extra games like Villa do with the Champions League. We have no excuses for the inconsistencies. And I think last year, obviously, when we had a bit of a slide backwards and forwards, we kept on saying, Eddie's putting the same 11 out every time, blah, blah, blah. And we haven't got that excuse.
What Emery's enjoying, for me, Eddie, saved relegation, got win to Champions League, and that gained him a tremendous amount of credit in the bank. Villa have done that a year later. They did that Champions League in the right order. They didn't quite do it the first time. They got there the second time, so you could argue they're on the improve all the time. They're top of the Champions League, so they've got a lot going on for them there. So Emery's still got all his credit in the bank, which is why there's no rumblings at Villa at the minute. Eddie, on the other hand, after last season, which, as I've said a million times, there were reasons, justifiable reasons for last season with injuries and one thing and another. Eddie's reached the point now where he's just about spent all the credit in the bank.
Yeah.
And more and more conservative, very conservative pundits, for want of a better expression, opinions, like myself, who've been saying, give it time, give it time, give it time. Especially when you see the likes of Saturday. Well, if you combine Saturday with Monday, that's 180 minutes with 2 shots on target.
Was it 2 shots on target, though? I mean, you can't even class it as on target.
Well, it was two against West Ham. None against Crystal Palace, but 2 against West Ham.
Yeah, it was like 166 minutes in total, wasn't it?
So
from the last shot on goal.
Yeah, right. Crazy. Okay. Well, if you I'm saying 90. Obviously,
I am being pedantic when I say that, but you're absolutely right. It's
like
been
I
2
say,
games.
The reason that I don't think you're hearing any rumblings in the Midlands yet is because Emery still has that credit in the bank, and they're still going remarkably well in Europe.
Yeah. But they did start with a better side than we did. I mean, that's something that I mean, we all know that
they've spent money every window.
Some of their players. Yeah, and we know they had to shuffle the pack like we did at the end of it because they were in a PSR quandary, the same as we were. But is it the fact that we are, you see, the one thing that I believe has got everybody really peed off. Now, let's go back just a little bit if we can. Obviously, with a lack of options up front, top class right winger, we've been needing to address, and this is where Eddie Howe has been concentrating on, was this right centre half, which meant that obviously we've had a little bit of a lack of options up front. Now, if we go back to the Mike Ashley era, we've still got Jacob Murphy, Miggy Almiron, Callum Wilson. Remains most of his options up on that right hand side, and obviously now we've brought in Anthony Gordon, who we both said was brought in as a right-sided player, and because of then Barnes coming in on the left-hand side, which I'm still questioning whether that was the right choice at the time. But again, I bow to Eddie's superior knowledge and his scouting network. But I also look at it and I think to myself, is it the fact now that we've had these two windows that we could have improved certain areas? We all saw what Gordon did, for us last season. You've got to say he was one of very few top performers, even though, you go through it and the amount of goals from across the park last season was phenomenal. 80 odd goals in all competitions, which was an amazing feat in itself. But then when you start looking at the issues that Eddie's starting to address or trying to address, he's concentrating purely on this right centre back when he knows fine well that we are struggling with anything delivery or movement in the box. We've been so stagnant this season. Do you think it's more the fact that people now have switched off to what Eddie wants to do when we can all see an issue? We've still got the Mike Ashley era players playing in these prominent positions. Well, at least they fell down the pecking order a little bit now, but they are still some of the mainstay of the squad. If they wasn't good enough then during the Bruce era, what makes them good enough now? Now, we know that Eddie's made a little bit more of them. Miggy played excellently. He got his purple patch during our Champions League season, and it's one of those situations now where has people just got fed up with the chances of bringing a player in and us just not doing that?
I'm just looking through some of the comments here, and they're saying that Emery's a proven winner. That's why he's got credit in the bank. Eddie's used all his credit up. I'm on the fence, and I'm gradually tipping towards the Eddie out camp. I'm not there yet. But there would appear to be no excuse. For example, on Saturday, Isaac gets injured, goes off. We've got two centre forwards on the bench. And instead of that, he decides to take our player of the season away from the position that made him player of the season on the wing and change three other positions to accommodate putting Barnes on. Why complicate things like that? Why not simply put if Wilson, for me, if Wilson can't last 75 minutes, he shouldn't be on the bench. Let's get him proper fit so that when he is on the bench, he can come on if required.
Yeah, but I think the biggest adage to that is, you see, he needs competitive minutes rather than training minutes. He's had a year of training minutes, if you like, and it never gets you up to that level of fitness that you require. And it's about the match sharpness. It's about reading the game and everything else. As I keep saying, it's not just natural fitness where you go on a jog for an hour. So I understand him doing that, but you're right. I couldn't understand that change. That actual change blew my mind because you're changing several positions, and in actual fact, as much as I wouldn't say we were in the game, it was more of a spectacle up until the 22nd minute of a game. Because we were trying to get in and behind them, because there was a couple of times where Gordon had beat Gay. There was a couple of times that J7 had got past Chalobah on the other side. So, yeah, it does make me wonder that. Why did he just gamble? We've seen from the start of the season that Anthony Gordon just doesn't show us anything up front. His lack of knowledge, not being a natural striker, was evident for
He's
everybody
one
to
of
see.
our most potent weapons on the left wing, and so I'm of the opinion now that's where we'll play him, because he's not doing it on the right and he's not doing it in the middle. So let's keep him where we know we're going to get some good out of him.
Yeah, Niles put down that it's in the in-game management that's been disappointing.
Yeah,
It's consistently falling
I
short,
agree.
and he has not adapted to formation that has been figured out 18 months ago. I
And
suppose
his substitutions just time after time, his substitutions baffle me,
yeah, yeah,
and a lot of other people as well. But it's and what I said at the start of the season, if you remember, was I think his team selection this season depended on his team selection and in-game management, and I
mm,
hoped that he'd learned a lot of lessons last season, and that this season, with the benefit of not having the injuries that we had last season, we would kick on, which was why I predicted second.
yeah, yeah. You said that, didn't you?
It doesn't appear to be learning at all,
No.
and
In actual fact, he seems to be going backwards, doesn't he?
that's the really worrying thing for me now.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got sort of the next half a dozen games to pull it out the bag, and I wouldn't bet against him doing it, because he's done it in the past when we've been on dodgy runs, and all of a sudden something clicks and off we go.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Jens has put
But
down
it
here, look,
needs to be more consistent.
Eddie has spent 400 million. Jens Gardton. I haven't seen you before, Jens.
I've
Welcome
seen
anyway,
Jens
buddy.
before.
Okay. I mean, I've seen a lot of Jens, but not Gardton. If the player are too bad, it's on him. There are zero excuses for the results this season.
Yes,
You
you're
know,
saying that he spent 400 million. That's 400 million over 6 windows. Every other team in the Premier League has spent the same. You know, with the 3 of those 6 windows, we didn't spend a penny, or virtually not a penny, including the last 2. And in this league, if you try and stand still, you go backwards. You have to, apart from the therapeutic value to the squad of having new faces come in to freshen things up, the quality, as we see, when you haven't got that competition for places, the performance level drops.
yeah,
And
it's
you know, you could argue with somebody said, there's a comment there somewhere, that Sir Bobby was let down in the market, which I kind of agree with. But I can also remember at that time, I was one of the people saying I just wouldn't give him any more money, because at the time he seemed as though he'd lost the plot.
yeah.
And I said,
I just
I wouldn't give him any more money because I would save that for the incoming man. This was before the days of directors of football and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
But
Well, the reason is why I'm bringing this up because obviously somebody out there in the social media world has put down that they want Eddie Rafa Benitez back because of his tactical know-how and everything else. And I'm not sure whether like I say, there's
no, I don't.
times have moved on,
Yeah,
from years gone by, and as much as Rafa did well for us, getting us promoted, but I look. There's a lot of. I mean, you look at the Brighton manager. Never heard of the lad really,
no, I
and how
hadn't.
well he's doing such a good job there. And I think he's young, he's energetic, he's really getting involved with the players on the field. Um, and Amrin, who's just gone to Man U. Now, the way I look at it now is, yes, they looked a bit dodgy in the first match, but against Leicester, uh, against Everton, who yes, we took off the park, but couldn't find a way of getting behind. It could have been 8 or 9 against Man U, for Man U, against Everton. They were that bad, and that's what I said. They played the low block exactly the same as they did against us, but they managed to pinpoint all these players in and around the box free to take a shot at goal. And it's like everything else, Pickford, as much as people say he's the England's number one and everything else, percentages. You can only save so many. And I think that was the same as Gordon on Saturday. We critiqued, should he have been beaten by his near post? But again, you go back, if you give anybody enough shots at you, you're going to have one that goes through you. It's just one of those things, isn't it? You can't save everything all of the time. Gavin Fuller has said that what we were saying yesterday, we got Champions League, we played on the counter. Now we're playing a Pep style play of football. And I mentioned that yesterday. It seems we set up back in the days when Eddie Howe first come on board as this counter-attacking team that wants to have space in and behind. But as teams start to find you out and they play lower and lower, what other availabilities, what other style of play can you bring into the side? And we seem to have hit a little bit of a brick wall when we've done this, because like everybody keeps on saying, watching our black screen the other day was like literally watching Eddie Howe's plan B. There just doesn't seem to be one. And I think that's where people get a little bit,
Peter
obviously feed
McCardle
off.
agreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, it seems Connor from Toon Talk has also put Eddie 3 years at the club, 400 million spent. Have we regressed? Well, I said
Well,
we've
we
gone
definitely
stale.
haven't
I don't think.
regressed because we're not in the relegation zone. We're 4 points off second place.
Yeah, I mean, but I understand. I think style of play has regressed. I don't think the
Oh, without a
players have
doubt.
regressed. I think the style of players regressed because we're still looking to be the same team as we were 3 years ago, 2 years ago, if you like, because we've
Well, I
we've
don't think
tried
we
that
are. You
football.
see, because
Well, we have, but it's changed
the
slightly.
press that got us
Yeah,
so much success has disappeared
has gone.
altogether.
Yeah. But that's what I said yesterday. When you watch the games last season where we were conceding silly goals against teams in the bottom half of the league, a lot of the time, and everybody was scratching their head. What the hell's going on here? Why are we conceding? Why are we giving Chris Wood a hat trick? He couldn't hit a barn door when he played for us. But it's that ball over the top, and Eddie Howe somehow, for whatever reason, has stopped our midfielders from moving forward. And unless you go as two blankets of three forward to stop and get the press on, you're never going to press teams. There's always going to be an avenue to get out. Now, obviously, Liverpool come to us on Wednesday, and we'll sit back, we'll wait and wait and wait, and they'll be the types of teams, as we've done before against Man City, against Arsenal, against Tottenham. All these players, all these teams that like to have ball at feet, we'll try and sucker punch them and try and get the ball in and behind. That's
That
great.
there is
That
just
you,
something to
you look
say
at.
there though, because everybody thought that Man City, and me included, what a great performance, da-de-da, the great Man City, and we've held them at bay. But look what they've done since that game.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Were they
Lost
the
5
great Man
games.
City that played us?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
did we play this Man City?
Well, are they on the turn? That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're going through a
Ooh,
dodgy spell at the
doctor.
minute, aren't they? So it is a crazy one at the minute when you look at it. And like I said, we all were vying for the team that was put out on Saturday. Everybody said, we all looked at the start. I was excited. I'm thinking, when you look at the 11 on the park there, this should be not. There's no give me's in the Premier League, but it should be the way you're playing a team that's 19th in the table. And like I said yesterday, I have to take my hat off to Crystal Palace because we couldn't deal with their formation. It was nothing to do. We were playing poor. Don't get me wrong, but we couldn't deal with their formation. Sometimes you do, as a manager, have to quieten the opposition down for 10, 15 minutes to gain control of the ball and move on. And that's what I said. Every good manager out there, every good coach out there, always tries to stop the opposition and makes them adapt to yourself. Now, if your outlet, and we always say, J7 at the minute is our outlet, Anthony Gordon, whoever is your outlet. And it usually goes Fabian Schär. Once it's gone to Hall, it comes back to Burn. It goes across to Fabian Schär. Schär's got a bit of grass to run into, and he pumps then a diagonal ball out to J7 on the left-hand side. And you progress the ball on that left-hand side because you're doubled up with Willock, and you've got Hall bombing down the wing. So there's always an overload. But what happens once we've got that overload? And that's what I've scrutinised. It's the fact that we stop. And if you're not getting bodies, if you're not getting the guy on the right-hand side to run onto the back post, if you've not got somebody from midfield breaking lines to get into the box, and to me, that is what is the
But like I
biggest
say, the only
fundamental
instance of that
difference.
happening on Saturday was Bruno, who got to the back post once and headed it
Yeah,
wide.
but that's once.
Yeah, once,
that's
exactly.
what I'm saying. It's once. You've got to be doing this on a regular basis to be in any chance of getting onto the score sheet. And the best move of the game was from the free kick that got us the own goal. And it's the only positive thing, if I'm honest, apart from obviously our defending. And even then, you still let 16 shots go towards goal, and you're expecting, Hopey to save the world, if you like. It's just far too easy.
Niall saying instead of we used all these subs, you could easily have brought a Sula on and bring Wilson on later. Yeah, well, his explanation for that was that he didn't want to use 2 substitute. You get 3
slots.
occasions for 3 slots where you can make, and he didn't want to deliberately use 2 of them when he didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah, but it's like I said, when you're playing you're playing the way you are, and they're still breaking your lines. They're still 2 balls, and it's on our back line. And that's how they played. They played with this 3 diamond up front like an arrowhead, like I said, with Munoz more or less the one breaking in the back stick all the time. So there was an overload of 4 players nearly all the time. For me, it was a case of, right, I need to change it up a little bit. I need to support the back line. And I either put an extra midfielders in, and I either bring J7 out of that left wing position, who was doing absolutely nothing, and just sit him in there with Bruno and say to Tonali, sit in front of the back 2 of Burns and Shaw, and stop that channel. Break all of those areas up. Because to me, it was the simplest thing. You didn't have to make a change as a substitute. You just had to nullify their positivity, and their only effect on the game was to hit the front men quick. Once you stop doing that, they have to rethink. And that's what's happened to them in the past. The formation very rarely changes at Crystal Palace. They still play the same system. They may have a couple of different bodies, in certain places. But the system that they've used week in, week out has failed for them because a lot of teams that they've played against have stopped the service to the front three. Now, obviously, as always, Newcastle look, they have been with Eze for a few weeks because of the hamstring issue. He comes back to against us, and again, he
Didn't
didn't
do a
do
lot, to
anything
be fair.
to shake the trees, but he was a nuisance. His movement was a nuisance. He took players out of position a lot of the time. And that's what you do when you put three players up against our back four. It restricts you going forward because you then have to gamble. Somebody either has to sit in your space, and that's why you started to see J7 fall further and further back down in that left position because we saw how good Munoz was going in and how Mitchell stayed as more of a regimented on the other side. He was one that wanted to just hold back and sit in. But we just couldn't handle their system. And I think that was what really done me.
I mean, Jody
Beard
Dan makes
has.
a good point here that
All right, let me just do Beards. It's time to stop acting like little old Newcastle. It's not just the managers, it's the entire coaching staff that you get. Bigger managers, better coaching team, and more pulling power in transfers.
I don't know
Interesting.
that the coaches, unless you're a stellar coach, I don't necessarily think that it's the club that pulls the players, not the coaches. Jody Dancing, maybe he's only playing Wilson for 20 minutes because they don't want to get him injured before they sell him in
For the
January. And
sale.
I think there could be a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, yeah.
The last thing they want is for Wilson to be injured in January, even if it's which has been mooted in the past to use him as a make weight.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, if we could offer Brentford Wilson plus money for Mbwemo, etc., etc.
Davey Eddie here has put down a good one. 5 times this season I felt let down. Games when we could have really pushed on turned out to be a damn squid. I understand everyone's feelings, but 75 points to play for and 2 cups. And I think that's the way I
Well,
look at it. But
that's
just
that's me with me
going
glass
off the
half full head on.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I said you've got to look at it. This is the first 13 games. We've got 19 points from 13 games. The goal difference isn't great. We're on 0, 14 for, 14 against. Um, and we are only 6 points from second. It's 2 games. But like I said, what's disappointing, and I totally get where Davey's coming from, is the fact that, with the teams that we've played, and we all said at pre-season, when we looked at the fixtures, we couldn't
Yeah,
have asked for a better set of fixtures
correct.
because of the way they were spread out, where you were getting the top six, the cartel clubs, um, all spread out through the season, where you hadn't really got a run of bad games. I mean, you look at what Wolves had played in their first 13 compared to us, and you'd say, we have got a better run. But I do think, looking at these 2 cup games, I think the Brentford game, if we go out of the Carabao Cup, um, to Brentford, then there will be some serious questions because everybody from the start had been saying how, you know, probably the cup, the Carabao is one of those, I suppose, tournaments that you've really got a chance of doing. We've been in the final once, quarterfinals too, the second time, and we've got to get into the semis at least, I think. But when you look at the teams that you're up against now in those final few games, Brentford ain't now give me even at home. Even though you know when they come to St James's, they'll be a test for us the way they're playing. But their away form has been a lot worse than their home form. But I totally agree with what Eddie said there. If you don't do well in the cup games, you are. I think Eddie will be questioned big style then, if he's not
Yeah,
already
but
been.
well, what Davey was saying before that 5 times this season, we had the chance to go second, we had the chance to go third, we had the chance to get in the top four, and it happens time and time again. The Everton game, Brighton game, the way the league is, win those games. West Ham was the same. We suddenly go up to fourth if we beat West Ham, and we just cannot seem to win these you can call them must-win games or whatever you like, but important games that are going to make a difference to the league table, we're seemingly incapable of. It was the same at the back end of last season, if you remember.
It
We
was.
should have. We should with that run in that we had last season. We should have been comfortably sixth, at least sixth. And we blew it.
Yeah, Crystal Palace again, wasn't it? 2-0.
Yeah.
And it just then you go to Man U and
And
lose.
Man U, who were terrible at the time,
Terrible. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
dispatched us.
And that's what I'm saying.
And
That's what.
it's these games that these as I say, must-win games, and we just don't seem to win them. Now you come to a game like Wednesday, where is it a must-win? Most people are thinking we're going to get turned over, and they're just the sort of games we're going. But it's pointless beating Arsenal, beating Liverpool, if you're not taking points off the bottom six.
Yeah, that's
It's,
right.
Go on.
Alan McMurtry saying here, look, you can't be dropping 5 points last week with the opponents we've got coming up, and I think
Yeah.
that's the thing, isn't it? When you look at what we've got coming in December, thick and fast these games, I think this is really gonna test us to the mire, and he's gonna have to rely on the lesser players, if I'm honest, to get through this month. It is what it is at this present moment in time with what we've got to play with. So here we go. Alan Thompson has put down that, lads, there's 18 other fan bases are asking the same questions of their manager. There are going to be lots of managers getting presents this Christmas, and it's the sack.
And it's not Santa's sack.
No. Well, I don't know whether it's going to be lots, but like I say, I was quite surprised that Glasner hasn't had his marching orders, and I said that pre-game. But then the way they played against us, you think they've probably just turning a corner. But again, they've got no striker. You could see that Mateta was awful, and if it wasn't for their creation, going into that, Eze's just come back, and you could see he wasn't sharp, and he had their opportunity, the half chance that Shaw got, kicked away from him. Somebody with a little bit more sharpness around his game, that could have been quite easily a shot at goal. Stevie's saying, can someone please tell me where the intensity and high press was? This is what you've just said. It's gone. I think Bunce need to stop with all the injuries, and this is why the way we're doing it. And I can't say it's. I can't see the reasons why. When I say I can't see the reasons why, is because we've got no further injuries. Now, you can say the intensity parts. Like I said, for me, having watched the games last season when we had the injury crisis, the difference for me is we pressed as a unit. We don't press as a unit no more. Now, I don't think that is because of injuries. I think that is because we were leaking goals. Now, what's changed? We're still leaking goals. We are not stopping goals going in. What we stopped scoring, and I think that's the problem. If we'd have gone in and banged 3 against Crystal Palace, like we could have done last season, we would have done perhaps. If you concede one, it ain't a real hard shame. But it's the games that we went to and drew 4-4 against the likes of Luton. You lost 3-1 to the likes of Forest. Where these are the type of teams, as Wim was just saying, where you go for the throat, but you leave yourself totally vulnerable and wide open for the counter attack, because that's what we do to teams. Teams is doing to us last season, and Eddie's tried to stop that. The problem is now, and it's like I keep saying, it looks like to me, people are playing within themselves. They're not expressing themselves. And they say, well, I'm not taking responsibility. You take responsibility. And it just seems like, and I'll point to one finger, Bruno. Bruno's game for me this season, and it's happened throughout, even in international level. He's just playing hard, within himself. He's not expressing his ability. He's playing some of the simple balls. He's taking a lot more risks than he needs to. He goes to floor so easy these days. I know it's always a trait of his, but he's always trying to get, the foul. But the amount of balls that he's given away this season, or half-hearted challenges that just have been nowhere near, I can't see the point in having him on the
Well,
field.
again, you see, for me, it's not just Bruno. It's the three of the stellar players that we've got, if you like, which is Bruno, Isaac, and Gordon, have all been off the boil this season. And that's essentially a creative and scoring machine
Yeah.
that worked
That's what I
so
said.
well last season, but just isn't working at all this season for whatever reason.
No.
And if Eddie can't figure that out, then we've got to get somebody in who can figure it out.
Who can? Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said. It's got, to me, it needs a slight tweak. If you've got two players unwilling to move forward, and I'll put Tonali in that figure of speech as well. Tonali likes to sit, he likes to play, he's a controlling player, and he'll dictate play. If Bruno's going to be the same, then you need to play a 10, because you've got the perfect formation then for your wing backs to play the inside left and right. Your wing backs, your full backs, to play left and right. You've got overloads all over the park if you play the right system. To me, there seems to be far too much of a gap between our full backs when they go forward. Tino on the right hand side. You've got whoever is outside of him, whether it be Gordon or J7 as we speak, or even Barnes. Now he seems to be looking at shuffling the pack all over the place. When you've got an inside right player, and Tino coming through, left of him, there's nobody. And that to me is, like I said, when you've got players there should always be one that either works through the midfield to sit in these half spaces to support. So you've got a give and go, a little dink over the top to get in and behind. You can cause all sorts of problem if you hit the ball correctly. Now, the one thing I've often said, that you need players with vision, and you look at Tonali at the free kick. It's just a simple instep pass into the half space for Gordon to run onto. He's already made the movement that way. Perfectly weighted pass. Gordon drives it across and you get something from it. It's an own goal. So they've got the ability to do it. It's why we cannot show it in open play. It's not, set pieces one side, but you should be doing stuff like that in open play. It shouldn't just need a set piece to come and get that. So I seriously can't understand why we've gone from a team that can score 85 goals in a season to a team that barely gets a shot on goal. And that's the strangest thing for me. Why all of a sudden are we not able to get a shot on target? It seems crazy.
It's the worrying thing, buddy. That's the thing.
It's all right, Bob. You keep calling me Barry again, and it's like oh, jeez. I tell you. I've even stopped at this lad's house. You got me, and he still calls me Barry. I don't know whether it's my weekend name. Right, let's.
B's easier to say.
Alan Shearer. It'll be country for it, I suppose. Alan Shearer this morning has been on the Resties football podcast, and he was obviously asked the question about obviously Newcastle, and his quote was, "I am concerned, because what has gone on. Sorry, what they have got. Well, I think they've got 14 goals, and we've scored 13 games in 13 games. 3 of them were away at Forest last year, or maybe the year before. So many times we spoke about Newcastle, their energy, their pressing, how they get after you, and I don't see a lot of that. It's pretty worrying, particularly in the final third. I mean, Isaac went off injured. He chose to put Wilson on that time. He brought him on with 15 minutes, 20 minutes to go. And other players have to start and score goals. Gordon has to score. Barnes has to score. J7 has to score. Willock has to score. Isaac has 4 in the league this season. I hope he's not done too. He's got too badly injured, and he can play on Wednesday against Liverpool. So yeah, it's definitely concerning. Absolutely. And I mean, the way it's been written down here, it's all over the place, to be fair, but I'm trying to make some sense of it. And like Aston Villa, Newcastle, I think, in the bottom half, maybe 11th or 12th in the league. Well, obviously, if he's saying maybe, he's not looking at where his team is, because obviously that's factual. So he says, yeah, not great for Newcastle. They have to improve. And I suppose from the way, he's obviously black and white through and through, and we all know, sometimes as a fan we do get a little bit fanatical. We've seen a lot of, like I say, what people put out there, but we both said, I mean, you being the glass half full, me being steady Eddie, don't raise too high, never raise too low. Um, we even said when we were watching the Crystal Palace game that it's poor. I rewatched it this morning, our commentary when we were talking, just to see whether there was points that I'd missed out. Having the game on my laptop and watching our commentary to see where we were. I was trying to work out where, what we could have improved during our commentary. And to be fair, there was very few high points, was there?
No, there was
There was
none.
a couple of times where we got.
It was dire.
Um,
Oh, sorry, I've got somebody at the door there.
Another one. Crikey, you're having some of these love joys coming through today. I'm just going to have a quick look at some of the chat just while he's gone off. Beard's put down, it's, sorry, I'm going to put that on. Sounds awful, but it's true. These guys have done nothing, and we're asking them to compete with the best coaching teams in the world. It's like I said, when you say that, for me, I always look at it. It's the same team that all but a couple of bodies that got us into Europe. So, what has changed? And like I said, the only thing that I can see is the way Eddie sets up per game, and that's not to overcommit bodies. Now, if you're going to do Pep football, then you've got to have Pep style players. So, have we? That's the question: is have we got players from the back that can retain the ball and pass accurately? Well, you can take Dan Burn out of that, because obviously that's not Dan Burn's strength. He's more of the defensive side. Shaw, I would say, to a degree, but again, some of his passing has been very wayward. Tino muddles his way through. I don't think he's the most accurate passer I've ever seen. I think Hall's probably our best passer of the ball from the back by a country mile. And then you go into midfield and you think, take Longstaff out of the equation, Tonali and Bruno, internationals of their own right. They should be quite easily at building from the deeper side of our half and progressing the ball forward. Well, what gets me is every time I watch the game, is every time Isak comes deep to get the ball, there's nobody running in behind. Because if you're drawing players from their backline, the opposition's backline, you should have markers. You should have players getting into that space that Isak's vacating to hit the ball into. Don't see it. I haven't seen it. So the ball goes into feet with Isak. And, we all know Isak's not the strongest player with his back to the opposition goal. He doesn't get turned. He gets knocked off the ball too easy. The ball gets turned over. And again, we're back defending. So for me, the biggest thing that I have noticed is the commitment of players wanting to run into the half space. And I just don't see enough of that to warrant. Because as daft it looks, when you turn players running, facing their own goal, it becomes an awkward situation. And we've seen we both laughed at Henderson's clearance when he kicked the ball further back than he did forward the weekend. It was nice to see we've got somebody else on the field as bad as Popey's footwork. And you can make as many excuses as you want, but I do think,
Well, I've noticed lately when we are in possession, our movement off the ball is virtually non-existent. Everybody just stands still, waiting for the ball to be passed to them, instead of running, into space to, as you say, drag the defenders with them and create space elsewhere. When we get possession, it comes out, goes to share, goes to burn, and there's nobody running when we are in possession. They do plenty covering when we're out of possession, but when we are actually in possession, the options available for the man on the ball, it's generally one or a long diagonal ball to the wing. They are the options that we are being presented with right now, because there's just no running off the ball when we are in possession.
Yeah. I agree with you, mate. It's like I said, we are very static in our areas of play. Nobody's, like
And
I
we
said,
never used to
you
be.
know, no, exactly. When you've got three lads up front, say you've got two width players. They're obviously being told by Eddie and the crew to stay wide, to spread their back line. Well, at the end of the day, like I said, it's what you call the run space. When the ball's in the air, your fullbacks have half the distance to run than the ball has to travel. So you don't have to go man to man. You can stand on the edge of the 18-yard box and be really narrow across the 18-yard area, knowing full well by the time the ball gets to you, you can close the space down. So, for me to say, stay as wide as you possibly can, that's great when we are building up. But you don't have to stay out there when we've got the ball on the opposite side. You have to commit yourself to the box at some point in challenge the area. Uh, Going on to, obviously, going back onto Instagram story, there was a quote from Bruno Gilmoras that stared a little bit of, I suppose, crap. And obviously, there's people are always going to put two and two together and make six when stories like this come out. So it was obviously done in Portuguese Brazilian, and it's the message was para de regar uma flor morta. And apparently, the quote translated from Portuguese means "stop watering a dead flower." Now, we both talked about this in the green room, and we both came to the decision. He's potentially meaning, obviously, we aren't playing well, and at the minute it's like flogging a dead horse, as we
Flogging
would
a
say
dead horse,
in
indeed.
English. Yeah, exactly. And obviously that's where he's getting the words from. We just seem to be flogging the dead horse at the minute. But his game himself, and we said, what has changed with Bruno? Do you think now you don't lose talent? You're
Class is
born with an element
permanent,
of talent,
form is temporary.
right? So, because if it wasn't that way, then teams in the National League would be vying with the Premier League players. So you have got form, and you're born with a certain amount of it. So when I look at it, is it the fact that Eddie and the backroom staff had spoken to Bruno with his contract that was to expire in June, well before the 30th, with a clause to let him go? Now, do you believe, right now, we've all heard Bruno talk about his love for the club and everything else, and I could be absolutely a mile off with this speech that I'm coming out with now. But this is my opinion. I think Bruno was set to move. I think he'd already got a plan to move. And I think this year, because the plan hadn't moved and it hadn't gone to what he was expecting, he's not there mentally now. Because his game, and it's his game not just for Newcastle, it's his game for his national side, it's his overall body language. Now, people will blame captaincy. Now, we said from day one, he's not um, he's not the type of player that will come and give you a kick up the backside. He's not one of these that'll scream and shout at you. The only person he ever seemed to want to scream at is the referee. I wish he showed that much devotion and I suppose uh, passion towards his teammates. I even saw, when Tonali was involved in a pass out to Barnes, and Barnes just, was nowhere near it, and the ball went out for a throw-in. You could even see Tonali raise his hands up in the air as if to say, what the hell is going on, towards his players. But you don't get that from Bruno.
And there's more and more of that going on, by the way, with players sort of throwing their arms up all over the pitch. What you doing? What you doing?
Yeah. It's like you're pointing the finger without pointing the finger, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not bloody good enough to play in the team. So I wonder whether there's a bit of a mixed message out there at the minute. Bruno's been made the captain as a pat on the back for not being able to move or nobody coming in for him during that clause period. And what Eddie Howe's done is pat him on the back and said, listen, we failed you. We didn't get you gone, which is what we were talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the captaincy to show my appreciation for you at this club. Now, it's been detriment to his game, whether he can't cope as a captain or he can't cope with the thought of him not moving to Pep Guardiola, because obviously we know that's his love. What's your thoughts on what he said?
I'm listening to what not just he said, what everybody's saying, and there's just and it's being echoed in the chat here that there's something fundamentally wrong at the minute at the club. I don't know whether it's still an ongoing feud between Mitchell and Howe, or Howe and the rest of the hierarchy, but we don't appear now to be in the situation that we were when everybody was pulling in the same direction. On the pitch, nothing is going right. Nothing is going right at all. And this is where a manager earns his pennies. You can have one or two bad performances, which we've certainly had, but with the quality that I believe that squad has got, the rest of the squad should be able to carry one or two bad performances. We, again, coming back to me, we carried Longy last season. Despite the fact that he was putting in subpar performances, the rest of the team carried him. And so on the odd occasion when he did put in a game, we ended up winning, by 4s and 5s. Or 8s in the case, because of course he opened the scoring against Sheffield United.
Sheffield, yeah.
But there comes a point where you have to turn around and say, look, this isn't working. And on the basis that our hands are tied with FFP, although, as you know, I don't believe they are, I think it'll be a planning decision. If we decide not to spend any money in January, that to me is a planning decision. They're keeping all the money back for the summer and a potential new coach. Hopefully, though, glass half full, hopefully we can use Liverpool as the springboard for another January charge, which we've done in the past. After that abysmal December last year, we came out of it and went on a great run that got eventually just short of Europe. But again, we finished off badly last season. We had that great spell in between. If we do the same, we've just got to make sure it doesn't happen again at the back end of the season.
Yeah.
I do hope you're not dealing. The doorbell rings a hell of a lot.
Oh dear.
No, well,
Oh dear, lovely.
what's actually just been delivered by Amazon is my new lighting rig. So hopefully I'll be able to look brighter and better in future.
Yeah, exactly. Have you earmarked any of the chat? Because we've got
Yeah,
lots of
yeah, I've got
people
a
in the chat,
load
mate.
here.
Go on then, because I've done my spiel for a bit. I'm just going to change
Right,
subjects in a minute. So
so
let's see what we've got.
Gillian G, it's like history repeating itself. 2004, so Bobby eventually getting sacked after not getting backed. Howard's had his hands tied since January, set up the field. Hopefully the next manager is not like Souness, indeed. Roger said, I said until Christmas, trolls. That's close now. But bizarrely, we are still close to 4th, 5th, exactly. Gavin Fuller, when we got Champions League, we played on the counter. Now we're trying to play pep ball. I think there's a degree of truth to that as well, because Eddie has said that he wants to be more possession-based, controlling possession. And is that where the pressing intensity as our identity has gone? Because he's quite happy. Is Eddie quite happy to see Burn to Share, Share to Burn, Burn to Share, Share to Gordon, Gordon backwards to Hall, Hall inside to Burn, Burn, boring, boring, boring. And yes, you're
Which is
keeping
the pep
possession,
football, isn't it?
but you're getting nowhere with it. It's exactly pep football, but we
Yeah,
haven't
exactly.
got
That's what I said.
the
We haven't got the
quality
pep footballers. No.
to then take advantage when you do go on a quick break. Where was that one again? Let's have a look. Was that one? Howard's failed to take the club forward. Bruce finished 12th with Hayden and Shelby. There's no excuse but creating it for not creating a shot, I suppose, after spending 400 million and being bottom half. Well, let's hope that's a temporary situation. David Eddy, we have to buy in the winter window and buy well. We are all fed up with the PSR argument. If no one comes in January, it's beyond unacceptable. We need to get the Febreze out. And Steve, the only reason Tonali started against Palace was Eddie was resting Longstaff for the Liverpool game.
Oh dear. It's criminal,
Steve,
mate, if that happens.
unfortunately, I don't trust Eddie at this point, so I think it will probably happen. Finally, someone realises Gordon should be on the left. Thanks, Wayne. It's been driving me insane. Well, yeah, we thought we found the solution. Putting Gordon on the right. That was against Chelsea in the cup, and everybody's saying, right, we've found it. And then against Forest, we had J7 on the right, and we thought, right, we've found it there now, we've found it there now. To me, get Gordon back on the left, leave him there, and stop fannying around and tinkering around with all the different things. Even more reason to play Sula then if you're worried about Wilson getting injured before January. Well, yeah, it makes no sense to me that he's never had a decent run on the pitch. This isn't just new to this season, it's a mentality thing. When we play lower teams, we think we can just show up and win. Well, I hope that's not the case, but you could be right. Ian, we finished 7th last season, didn't strengthen, and have the 8th highest wage bill. Some of our fans are becoming entitled. Well, there's the key, the 8th highest wage bill. And it's historically proven that the teams with the highest wage bills get the most points. It's fact that, that's all fact based. It's not opinion. The more you spend on wages, the more points you get. And Darren Neal said as much in his Newcastle thing. So his priority, Darren Neal's priority, was to increase revenue so that we would be able to pay higher wages. So, in his opinion, we would get more points. We're playing one game a week most weeks. We had 3 international breaks, had limited injuries, no real serious injuries apart from Botman, Lascelles and Kraft. So no excuses for these performances. Yeah, I can't disagree with you. Alan Thompson, spot on, Gary, about the fixtures. The only thing we have is all the big 6 away, apart from Chelsea in the second half of the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve saying, Alan, yeah, we've got to play Liverpool twice, Villa twice, Man U twice, Spurs, Arsenal, Man City and Brighton all away.
All away, yeah.
That's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 of our remaining 25 games. So, well, not quite half, but all difficult games.
While you're doing this, I'm just going to go see how my bairn is. She's not well, so I'm just going to go make sure she's okay. Okay, bud?
Yeah. Stephen Hawke, I think we will go on a December run, personally, starting with a confidence-boosting win against Liverpool. That's my man, glass half full. And Jonathan saying, making top 4 once in an unusual season doesn't make us a top team. We overrate ourselves as a club. I think there's a bit of truth there. Without a doubt, when it seems when these games come up where we can really push on, we'll bollocks it up. It's got to be a mindset problem, wrong attitude. I agree. And this is what I say about, if we can get that monkey off our back and win something, the players automatically develop a winning mentality. And when they keep on failing, that's inevitably in the back of their minds in the next situation where it arises. So that they're struggling to kick on and go the next step, the extra mile. Confidence is massive in the Prem for me, and I don't know where it can be got. The last 2 games just gutted me. Europe just a dream now. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah, confidence is so very much. And like I say, if you can get but we've done it already. When we beat Arsenal, we suddenly thought, right, this is it. On we go. Forest, bang, on we go, and then whoo, back down to earth with a bang against Brighton. Albeit that we played well. Against. In fact, I think Brighton was our best performance of the season, despite the result. Anthony Gordon looks a shadow of him for myself. It's like becoming a regular international has removed his desire to try hard. Well, I hope that's not the case. And if you listen to any of his interviews or watch his tweets and things, he seems to be a lot more level-headed than I thought the guy was when we signed him. I thought he was a bit of a hothead young'un when we signed him, but to listen to him talking now, doing all these Zen stuff and Buddhist stuff and meditation, and he's got his first band now, so, would appear to be the opposite. But he's not looking the player that he was last season. But don't get me wrong, by the way. He's not the stellar player that he was last season. He's still putting in some good performances, but just not as good as they were last season. Everyone is barking to the moon, citing captaincy issues. The manager is the issue. His side is dysfunctional, plain and simple. Well, Gary, most fans are just as upset about the Howe comments that we deserve to win. We as fans are not fools. No shots on target in 90 minutes is a disgrace, and to lie to the fans does not bode well. Symbols, yeah. Tangy Vivid, I know I would transform into a box-to-box midfielder if we could buy him. It ain't going to happen, but Van der Ven at Spurs would be awesome from box-to-box midfielder. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. He's one of Tottenham's favourites right now. I hear a lot of people praising Tino, Hall and Byrne, yet we had 14 plus shots against us, a few of them being big chances. Are the defence good individual, but not as a unit? No, I think a lot of those shots that we've had against us are a result of the gap between the back line and the midfield, because there's just acres of space for the opposition to
There's
pass into.
disconnection, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, I said there's a total disconnection.
Tangy Vivid, Gordon, I sometimes think it's all about him. Look at the goal against Palace. You'd think he scored that goal. It was an own goal. Well, I think he was celebrating the fact that it was a well-worked...
That was a goal. Yeah.
Well, that
And
was a
to be
goal.
fair,
And also a well-worked, off-the-training pitch move.
yeah. And you've also got to think, when you look at something like that, it's relief. Because when things just aren't going your way, you saw what if anybody got to watch the crowd, what worried me to a degree was the side wall where the boards were. There was so much of a fan press onto the billboards, they actually collapsed. And there was a poor steward and a young girl that was under some of them, but they all seemed okay when we scored that goal. And again, it's just that euphoria. I don't not like seeing that. I must admit, I don't. And I've often said, when you get to the byline and you smack a ball across the box like that, anything can happen. Even if it deflects somewhere else, you've got a chance of a tap in or whatever. Or what happened to Crystal Palace, you get a chance of an own goal. So I don't. When you're tight to get a shot off yourself,
enough from open play.
That's what I'm saying.
Was from a free kick, but we don't do that enough from open play. Shoot, for God's sake.
Yeah, or at least get it so it's difficult for the defence to clear.
So Alan Thompson saying, Tony, revenge of the you-know-what. It's our midfield not protecting our defence and not getting forward to split defences open either to score goals. When we finished fourth, both were happening. Not now. It's worrying. That's the midfield for you right now. And yet on Saturday we started with the dream midfield of Tonali, Bruno and J7 that everybody thought, me included, at the start of the season was probably the best midfield three combined in the country. And it's turned out not to be the case. There definitely feels like there's a disconnect on the pitch, says Sean. Players unable to read each other's movements. It's like there's robots playing who have not been programmed right. Good analogy.
It is.
Dear Eddie, we always give the ball away too cheaply, i.e. Gordon 4 times in the first 10 minutes and Hall quite a few times versus Palace. As Alf Ramsey said, the ball is a block of gold, don't give it away. Or as Pelé said, the ball is your daughter. Look after it.
Look after it. It is. There's a point to. I said that. I thought Hall played well. He was, and I spoke, and I've listened to it again today when we were doing the commentary. I was impressed with Hall's aerial ability, because he was mainly up against Sarr when we were defending, which was leaving the 2 centre backs, one of them free, because obviously they went man to man with Mateta. And it was Hall who was on Sarr. Now, standing still, Sarr was a few inches higher than Hall. But what I noticed was Hall was actually getting above Sarr when he was clearing one of Henderson's balls across the top. And that's what I was impressed with by Hall. I did mention in our player points yesterday, disappointing that Hall gave the ball away quite a lot. But again, I couldn't say it wasn't for the one of trying to get the ball progressing up the field, because that's what he tries to do.
Once during commentary, didn't you, that one of his balls that'll go down as a missed pass.
A missed pass, yeah. But even though the intention was perfect.
It was that from creating a nailed-on chance on target, a big chance. Nigel Mahoney, to your point about Villa fans not calling for the gaffer's head, 2 things. One, they're in the top 10 of the Champions League and playing well, plus he's a serial winner. How has none of that? Yeah.
See, I would have loved to have seen us in this situation in the Champions League with this
instead
league
of the
table.
knockout, instead
It's
of the
so
group stage
different.
that we had.
Christ, I'd love to have seen what would have happened to them if we,
If they'd
Villa
had
was in our
PSG,
group of death.
Dortmund,
Yeah,
and AC Milan,
yeah,
yeah,
and
exactly.
AC Milan.
Well, that was just typical Newcastle, isn't it? Imagine if
That's
we
what I
did
said.
beat Liverpool, the confidence it would give us, beating the best team in Europe at the moment. Can't see it happening, though. I can.
Yeah.
If that's right about wages, why are we expecting top four? Well, that's a perfectly valid point. We shouldn't be. But it's just we've had our expectations because of what Eddie did when he first came and getting into the Champions League. We've had everybody's expectations automatically rise. Wages are a problem this January, as Luke Edwards reported. Due to Gordon increase, there isn't much wages to offer in January unless someone is sold. Well, there's been a lot of chatter in the group, of course, about how somebody is going to have to be sacrificed. I hate to see that, Does that mean we've become a selling club again? If so, we're not going to go very far. I said at the start of the season, this season is make or break for Howe. But he wasn't backed in the summer window to push the side on. We are in this position. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. So that is all of the starred chats up to now. There'll no doubt be a lot more now, but to come down. But
while you were doing that, apologies for me just nipping off. I just had to just check on my one of my twins is not very well, not at school today, so I just wanted to make sure she was okay.
No props.
I've just been reading a report that's coming from the Chronicle, and sometimes it does make me titter. And it goes back to say former Newcastle boss Steve McLaren reportedly once said, "In football, 2 days is a long time and a week is a very long time." You suspect Eddie Howe will know what it means after experiencing a bruise in 7 days on his own Tyneside. After all, as a club returning from a November international break, confidence is amongst the black and white persuasion is extremely high heading into both last Monday's West Ham home clash before the visit to Crystal Palace. What followed was a solitary point, one own goal, and just 2 shots on target across 180 minutes of football. Now, when you mention like the likes of Steve McLaren in a time of need, as we are at the minute, probably wasn't the best way of bringing in the subject matter, and it is crazy. Again, we were talking about in the green room about what to discuss on the show today, and like I said, you can go back to games and things like that, and we can see that there's still a lot of passion out there, and a lot of people want to give their opinion, and this is what it's about. It's about allowing fans of Newcastle United to come on the show and express via text, via a chat, and that's what it's all about. But just moving on to a side note, I mean, obviously, we all expected, as we'd previously mentioned, that War Flags were doing something for King Kev on Wednesday with a visit to Liverpool. By Liverpool to St James's Park. Now, apparently, according to what's been written, that pre-match celebration will not go ahead as planned. In the aftermath of Saturday's 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace, United failed to register a shot on goal. The group say the timing is called for something different. And they've turned around and said, War Flags made a big push for donations, even for calling on record goal scorer Alan Shearer. Keegan had been invited to the game, but was unable to attend. The 73-year-old has not attended a match at St James's Park since his second spell as manager at the end of 2008. So what they've said was, thanks to your incredible generosity with the donations, we have all the makings of a display fit for King Kev. We're excited to share this with you in the future. This week, however, we felt the timing called for something different. So there's going to be something obviously displayed the weekend, but it won't, this week, I should say, not the weekend. on Wednesday. So it says, to clarify, we will still be doing a King Kev display in the future, and none of the money raised for the Kevin display specifically will have been used for any other display. We are just letting you know, because obviously people will be expecting something on Wednesday for King Kev. We always try our best to set the right tone of matches based at the feeling at the time. From that, it's clear that the message needs to be for the current group and to try and help create a massive atmosphere on Wednesday nights. So anybody turning up to the game on Wednesday expecting a King Kev tribute, it won't happen. The lads are trying to G up, I
And
suppose,
I think it's
the match.
more likely, they
And,
haven't said so, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be a Eddie display.
yeah, potentially. Yeah, potentially. I mean, yeah, and don't get me wrong, I've seen I can never and Gabby and Aglangabo.
Agbon Lahore.
That's the one. You know who I mean. It's a good job I was never commenting when he was playing. He obviously made a bit of a pun when they were talking previously when Isaac's War Flags display was up. And he was commenting that it was totally over the top, unnecessary, and a waste, especially when the player plays the way they do. Do you think it's a waste of effort, or do you think it's part and parcel of that away vibe, home vibe, when to try and get that extra man, if you like, that 12th man behind you, a good display of flags,
Right,
G's the boys up, no end.
you're asking, do I think war flags is a waste of effort?
No, that's what Gabby. Yeah, you know what I mean. He
Oh,
said
right.
it was a waste of time.
Oh, no, it's bollocks, that. It's fantastic. Everybody loves it, and it definitely ups the club. Not that it stood when, again, the last two games
Well,
have been,
and that's what I'm saying. That's what he was saying. We did the Isaac, the blue and yellow
yeah,
Isaac
which was
flag with
fantastic.
a Swedish, which looked great. Yeah, absolutely. Even on, because obviously with me and Chris doing the commentating on Chrissy's channel, because they go to a break, a commercial break just before the match starts. He missed most of it, but I'd got it on another channel, and you could see it. So I was explaining what was going on, and it was like a great display, but not a great display from Isaac. And I think what he was saying, I've got his name in my head, but do you think he's going to come out of there? You got another chance.
Agbon
Um,
Lahore.
Bottle of whore, that's the one. Um, there is always going to be an element of, if the player doesn't display a good performance after all that effort, is it worth it? That's what he's more or less
Well,
saying.
interestingly, our Lord and Master's there saying, I will say Isaac didn't even acknowledge it, which really pisses me off. Well, first of all, he did acknowledge it. And secondly, he not only acknowledged it on the pitch, as it were, but also he tweeted. I don't do X, as you know, but I've seen the tweet that Isaac specifically thanking War Flags for the display and how good it made him feel. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it didn't have any effect on his performance on the pitch.
No, exactly. And I think that's what he was getting at more than anything else. And I often look at it and I think to myself, if the lads can't get G'd up from all the effort that the fans are putting out there, because at the end of the day, War Flags are just fans, aren't they? They're just
Yeah.
trying to get that extra excitement going. Um, I don't know. It's really crazy for me. Gobshite Gabby, as Geordie Dan says. Um, it is crazy to see how a lot of this, it becomes too much for some pundits. But I'm like you. I've been uh, graced with going to a couple of games this season, and every time I've been there, the display from War Flags have been outstanding. I must admit. Um, Going on to a bit of fun, I suppose, if you class it as fun. And the headlines I woke up to this morning was Newcastle break 4-year Premier record versus Crystal Palace, and I really struggled to work out what that was. And they go on to say the goal crisis is a tricky puzzle that Howe is currently struggling to solve. Newcastle have the same attacking players that scored a whopping 85 goals in 38 games last season, yet this campaign, thing they have not clicked to create anything similar. Anthony Gordon's body language has been poor. Alexander Isak suffered a fresh injury blow against Palace. Behind them, it's hard to see where the goals are going to come from. As pointed out by The Athletic, Newcastle's attacking display against Palace was so poor it actually broke a 4-year Premier League. And I had to go and think about this. And what they've come up with is it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, if you like. And they've written down, Newcastle became the first team to score in the Premier League match despite not having an effort on target since Watford did against Southampton back in 2020. Throughout the 90 minutes, Newcastle only built up an expected goals XG figure of 0.04. Now, we said 0.02, so I'm going to go with their figure because it's much higher. If the Magpies had held on to the win, it would have been the most statistically undeserved win in the top flight with a lower expected goals tally than when Watford won in 2016, and that was with a XG of just 0.12.
Which is still bigger
it's
than
nice to
ours,
have.
0.02.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, these have got it down as 0.04, and that's why I said I was going to go with theirs because it sounds better than what we had it down as, was 0.02. Scoring in every 200 shots. It's absolutely crazy. But you've still got to have a shot, and I don't even think we've had 200 shots. Never mind anything else. Obviously, he goes on then to comment and what does he think is the problem, and this is what get me, when he had the interview post Crystal Palace match, was because he said he hasn't changed anything in 2 years. Now, is that the problem?
Well, exactly.
Has he answered the question? Is that the problem? And I know there's lads in the chat have all said we've been found out. We play exactly the same way. And once you've blocked those passing channels down, that's it. We've gone because we can't play against the low block in the formation that we play. And obviously, it just goes on to say to me that you have to change the team. And rightly said again in the chat, you buy certain individuals around the players that you've already got to build. Now, we've missed two, and I've said this previously, we've missed 2 windows of opportunity to bring one player in at each time and each window. May not be a big name, doesn't have to sometimes be a big name, as long as it's improving the 11 that you're starting with. Now, I look at our team at this present moment in time, and I think there is certainly areas that we need to improve. There's certain areas that we have improved and we've taken gamble on. But the question I want to ask you, Win, obviously there's comments out there this morning that we are rumoured of going back down to Bournemouth for Tavernier. And I'm not sure whether that's the right, if it's true, whether that's going to grace us with anything.
There's been a lot of negative comment about going back for Semenyo, but the one that's been mooted now in the press is Tavernier. And
yeah.
I just don't think he is. Semenyo, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with. I think the fact that it's Bournemouth is irrelevant. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think Eddie's got a deal with Bournemouth where he's going to fund money to them or anything like that. But I just don't think Tavernier is good enough to improve us at all. He's a reasonable Premier League, mid-table player, you could argue, but he hasn't got that X factor. He hasn't got the bit of magic. I don't think that would spark us. We definitely need. But I'm saying we definitely need only if Eddie's got to change the system. I think we've now gone a full year where we've been playing poorly. a full year. We've had little bright spells here, there, and everywhere, but overall the forecast has been dull and overcast.
Yeah.
And that's because he's sticking to this rigid 4-3. Now that 4-3-3 worked absolutely perfectly when we were high pressing, when we had all the energy in the world and everybody was at it. But right now we haven't got that for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. People have been arguing it could be bunts in the background, saying, no, you can't train them at that intensity, da-di-da-di-da, that's what's causing the injuries. And if Eddie is having to work with those constraints, that could account for it. But, it's not working. It simply isn't working, so he has to find another way.
Yeah.
Or it's a results business, and if he doesn't find another way, he'll be out the door. Simple as. And if that's the case, then it's thanks for the memories, Eddie, on your bike.
Absolutely.
Not quite there yet.
But
Like I say, I said give him till Christmas. If we're not within 3 points of the top 4 at Christmas, out the door you go. But if we are within 3 points of the top 4 by the turn of the year, after we play Man United on the 30th, if we are within 3 points, then they have to back him in January. And if they don't, then you can't blame Eddie. You've got to blame the board.
Well, it's crazy though, mate, because we've now gone back to, by the looks of it, I've read the report this morning that we've gone back in for AC Milan's Tomori. And that's a report from Italy. Now, this is from the report. The centre-back has made 8 league appearances this season, including 6 starts. He was limited to 11 minutes in the last 6 league games, as he was an unused substitute on 4 occasions. So this is the Calcio Mercato in Italy state. The 26-year-old isn't able to perform as expected and therefore could leave in the San Siro next year. When discussing interesting parties, Newcastle and Juventus were tagged because obviously it was somebody that we looked at in the summer. Juve are closely monitoring the England international situation with the Serie A side, but they have to be wary with the competition from Premier League. And it's claimed that the Turin club will have to be wary of the Magpies, who seem to be at the forefront to sign the defender. Now, Tomori, obviously, we all said, he's not one of the big names that comes to mind when you're looking at the right centre back position. But obviously, if we're still going on the PSR demands, and we're still looking at players being sold to buy, is it somebody that you think is going to benefit the club going forward? He's not the ball playing centre half that I'm expecting Eddie Howe and his coaches and his scouts to be really looking at and saying, you're the next step for me.
Eddie Howe and his coaches and his staff. Is this not Paul Mitchell and his staff?
Well, don't forget, when we went into him first, this is when Mitchell first come to the club and he said he was taking a step back. That's when we were looking at these guys. And because of that interest, what's come from Italy at the minute is the fact that they don't want him anymore. AC Milan are looking to get rid of him, and they're looking at around about 30 million euros for him. And obviously that's earmarked like the likes of Juve. But obviously now, if Mitchell has to take control of the monies, has to take control of what we are looking for, what I'm saying to you is, do you think Tomori will give us the answer? Because I don't think he would. Not as a ball-playing centre-back.
To be honest, I haven't seen a lot of them.
Right. He's got the pace, don't get me wrong. He has definitely got the pace.
What I would say is, if AC Milan want rid of him, is he that good? If he's that good, why seen Milan prepared to let him go for 30 mil.
Yeah. Just before we come to the final story, I'm just going to ask you all very kindly, if you wouldn't mind, to hit the likes for us. Again, if you're brand new, don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell. Like I say, we do 7 days a week content, sometimes twice a day. Yeah, exactly. I'm just having a quick look if there's anything else. Ken Robinson has come in with on Saturday when the Geordie Journals asked Eddie why the goals had dried up. His reply was he didn't know why. That gives you a lot of positives towards Eddie. No, and I think I think that's it, isn't it? He doesn't know why because he hasn't changed anything in the last 2 years, which again is shocking in its own right. How needs to be backed in January, says Darren Lee. If we have another poor window, questions have to be asked of Mitchell's appointments. Now, like I've just said, I don't know whether it's going to be Eddie or Mitchell. His problem because of PSL will dominate what we can and can't do anyway, and it's already been mooted by certain journals that we haven't got the money to go out there and throw at certain individuals unless we sell. And if we do buy, then we have to sell before the 30th of June. So it's like I say, it's a narrow window. And you know what I heard this morning, and what was mooted on some social media platforms? The next person that potentially could be sold, if we buy in January, in June, when it comes to the 30th, and we have to do this 11th hour, let's get rid of somebody. Louis Miley could be the one that goes through that door. And I'll tell you something now.
Liverpool apparently very interested.
If he goes,
to me, that would be catastrophic.
Absolutely.
After losing Anderson,
to be fair,
and then to lose another homegrown.
He seems to be the only midfielder we've got that can see a pass through to the back line, because at this present moment in time, I haven't seen anybody when he's not been in the side try it. And I know I'm probably stretching his ability a little bit more, but he seems to have the eye, and I'd like to see him involved a lot more. Brandt is talking about what we've just been talking about, Tomori. In fact, the defence is why they've struggled so much this season. No, thank you for anyone from Milan, defensor. So he doesn't want him to come. That's what I said. He's not the type of player that I would be expecting to come this way. Geordie Dan has come in with, I have a feeling that we won't sign anybody in January, regardless of the league situation, and ride it out again. When the squad cost control come in to replace the PSR, this is when we will see the sponsors too. That's got a potential, if that's the case.
Darren saying, how been given a target of reaching European football. If he doesn't deliver, he will be expecting the sack. Yep, indeed he will.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget the NTTV members, Newcastle versus Liverpool prediction, folks. Obviously, we've got a very narrow window to get the predictions in. Anybody that's in the chat at the minute, please get your predictions in to Chris or Win, respectively, in the chat, so we can get on with that, because, like I say, we've got a very narrow window. So Darren Lee's come in and said that how's given the target reaching European football. If he doesn't deliver, he'll be expecting the sack. Well, that's what was muted. I'm not sure whether it's factual, but it was muted.
A couple of things. He's Mundo Deportivo, which is one of the biggest Spanish sports, dailies, is at Barcelona after Isaac now. Yeah, and they are quoting a figure of 75 million. Well, good luck with that when you've already got going 115 million. And Bruno for City.
Yeah, but that's been muted for a while now. That's what I said. Yeah. Was that the fact that was that the promised land that was given by Amanda to Bruno?
I think it was.
And it's not happened, and that's the reasons why you've got an effect on Bruno's, performances recently. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's just something's been, I'm just thinking of, because there's got to be a reason for it. Just to say thank you, Eddie, Dave Evie. Good show, lads. Lots of opinions, and that's what it's all about on a podcast. Thanks, Davey. Like I say, buddy, don't forget to give us the thumbs up. That'll be grand. Jody Dan saying Miley. No. Yeah, well, like I said, buddy, that's what's muted out there. If we buy somebody in January and we struggle to get rid of bodies, and like Tripsy's set to leave, as Niall's saying there, we've all heard of obviously Miggy's potential River Plate if they're willing to spend money. But at the end of the day, we have got to start moving players out. Like I said, we've still got umpteen players that are free to go in January to go and talk to other teams. And if I'm honest, there's a part of me wants to give Newcastle a bit of a kick up the arse. And I hope these said players, to a point, do decide to speak to other teams, because I think it's the jolt that Newcastle need to then become not a selling club, because I don't want to class us as a selling club, but as a club that's progressing. There has to be a time and the right time to sell a player, because if we don't, you're going to get to the point at where we are now, where potentially we could see 7 or more players just walk away with diddly squat in the coffers, apart from obviously what you do in wages, which won't be a lot. I don't think there's anything else, is there?
No,
apart
I think
from
that's all my
that
list done.
Yeah. The only other thing I was going to talk about, peeps, is it's the FA Cup draw tonight on BBC Two at 7 p.m. That's obviously British time, GMT. Newcastle are in the draw alongside 19 other Premier League teams, 24 Championship teams. The Magpies could be drawn as high as Manchester City, Liverpool, etc., or as low as the National League side and Tamworth. Now, Eddie Howe's side ball number is number 26 in tonight's draw, and the first ties are set to be played on the 11th of January 25. So, as we said, these games are going to come thick and fast. And you'd already had a look at some interesting numbers, and you said that Sunderland's was 38 number.
Sunderland 38, Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
About 24.
Yeah. So we've got some interesting ties potentially to look forward to. But you know what concerns me as we speak is obviously the last time we went out over there and we spanked the Mackhams 3-0. I wouldn't like to play him at the minute, because I think it could be a little bit of a problem. Or it could be that
I would love it.
It could be that litmus test to get the lads, back into the flow of football. But by God, I think I'd be twitching if we did pull
give
them
over, man.
out of
Give
the hat.
over.
Oh, it's just the bragging rights, isn't it? The way we're playing at the minute, mate, it's like, God blimey, I cannot see us, like I said, beating anybody at the minute. I mean, we've got Leicester around the corner, who's getting a spanking from everybody.
If you look at our fixtures coming up, Leicester, Ipswich, Brentford, they're all eminently winnable, and should have, but so were Brighton at home for me, and West Ham at home for me, and Palace away for me. Though I was looking when we had that next 10-game batch, starting with those 3. Well, you can include Everton as well. The 10 games that included Everton. That should have been 30 points for us. I know it sounds crazy because, when was the last time Newcastle won 10 games on the trot? But it should have been, there was 30 points for grabs there. And we've got 2.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, that's what I said. It's going to be an interesting, I think it's going to be a really hard December. And I think it'll be, you've already mentioned it, if he's not within a certain point to the top 3, 4.
My only worry is that we beat Brentford. Not a worry. Obviously, I want us to beat Brentford in the Carabao. But that we're going to a Dalglish Hullet situation where, because they were still in the FA Cup, and got to the final, that kept him in a job because we were still in the cup, even though the league performances were dross.
Yeah.
And then those league
Foxy's
performances were transferred to Wembley, where we got hammered.
Yeah, Foxy's saying that he would be a funny tie if he got Tamworth down at the Lamb. It was a good luck stadium for him. He never lost a game there. Bless him. Yeah, it's a good little stadium.
Well, that was your league
The
and all,
Lamb.
wasn't it?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I was down there not too long back looking at the 21s, who beat them on penalties. There's a couple of handy players, but I mean, not the level that you think they are better than they were, but never going to be that big a side. But it is a canny ground, the Lamb. So yeah, interesting times of yesteryear. That's all I'm going to say. Middlesbrough in great form, says Tanguy, so he'd be interested in that one. They look more likely than Sunderland to come up. Oh,
Well,
I
it's
must
going to
admit,
be
he's
interesting.
done well there, hasn't he? He's done really well since he's gone there. He had a bit of a blip last season, but he seems to have steadied the ship this season, so that'll be an interesting one. I must admit, the
Can you
Championship's
imagine
very much
the Championship playoffs if it was Sunderland Middlesbrough? Oof.
Middlesbrough. Ooh, absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, imagine if they both come up. Northeast derbies again. I mean,
Oh God,
God
that's
blimey.
12 hard points for us and 12 easy points for somebody else.
Crazy, mate. Absolutely crazy. Is there anything else from your lovely self before we say goodbye
No, I'm
to
done. I've got everything ticked off my list.
everybody else? Yeah, good lad.
So we will.
That's it then. So we are back on at 9:30 tonight with the preview of the Liverpool preview match. That'll be 9:30, obviously with Chris, myself, the Mighty, and I'm not sure who else is coming on, but I'm sure there will be. Chris was going to try and get a Liverpool fan on,
No,
wasn't
that's
he?
tomorrow, I think.
Oh, is the preview tomorrow?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Usually he does it a couple of days in advance, doesn't he? Because doing it too close to the game, you don't get the chance for it to be out in social media land. But anyway,
Well,
whoever it
anyway,
is,
we'll be
Fab
back.
Barry,
We'll be back tonight with some nonsense or other.
Rant is coming on. Yeah, so Chris is saying, no, man, it's today win. So it is today. Thanks, Chris. Fab Show from Barry and Derek says Mighty Mag. I'll tell you something now. I'm going to change my bloody name from Deepole. Thanks everybody for obviously being with us today, as normal. It's a bit of doom and gloom on this morning.
Yeah,
It's always horrible
just
on
a
this Monday
bad
morning.
week all around, man. Bad week all around.
Yeah. Everybody's a little bit gloomier than normal. It can only get better. Liverpool's coming
Things
to
can
town.
only get better.
It's always better when he sings, I suppose. Right then. So again, before we go, please smash the likes, thumbs up. Is always a good one. Subscribe if you're brand new, because obviously we've got 7 days a week, 2 shows a day. Don't forget we've got the mighty Yam Yam show on Wednesday daytime at 2. I'm not sure whether we'll do it this Wednesday, because obviously we've
With
got
a
the
match.
game at 7:30. So
hit the bell, and you'll find
yeah,
out.
so we will see, but we're definitely going to be doing stuff through the night. We may not do the afternoon show. Depends on what comes up. If there's any news or anything out there, then please get in touch with something, and then we'll go from there. But until then, until you see us again, we'll see you on the next one. So it's a
Goodbye
goodbye
from
from
him.
him. Catch you later on, 9:30.
How are the
Don't
lads?
forget to join us. And lasses and bairns. Take care, everybody. Thanks for
Ciao,
watching.
ciao.